Fox News alert now. It's getting rough again in Syria. Russia's embassy was the target of shelling earlier today. This is pro-government forces gathered at the compound to thank Moscow for their help. People started running. Another shell apparently slammed into the building. That's the report we have. Here at home, this president defends the U.S. president defending the U.S. strategy in Syria. Senator Marco Rubio telling Greta last night the president is in denial.
It's feel sad for the country to have a president who's in complete denial about what's happening in the Middle East. Vladimir Putin is going into the Middle East and saying, I know you know that America under Barack Obama is unreliable. You can't count on them. You can count on us. And we're going to show you how firm and resolute we are. We take action. We don't just talk.
John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a Fox News contributor. This situation in Syria could take a wrong turn at any point now with all these competing factions. Rubio is saying that Putin is playing Obama, challenging his leadership. You were talking like that 2 weeks ago.
Right. No, I think there's no question about it. I think Putin sees an opportunity for Russia, given Obama's lack of attention and weakness, and he's trying to exploit it. But the stakes are very, very high here, and when the president's not paying attention, there's grave risk for the United States. Russia's not backing down, though. There was reporting that over the weekend that, of all things, a Formula One race in Sochi, Putin met with the leaders of the Gulf Arab countries who have been supporting the Syrian opposition, including some of the radical forces, and said to them, do not give them man-pads, man-portable air defense systems. Do not, in effect, give them the capability to shoot down Russian planes. So that's a pretty direct warning to the Arabs that have been supporting the opposition, and I think something that they would be looking at. I think the opposition is more and more in trouble, squeezed now by the Assad forces and Russia's Air Force on one side and ISIS on the other.
I want to play you a bite here from 60 Minutes the other night. And what you'll hear before that, though, is a comment the president made about Syria from the White House about 13 months prior, September of 2014. Just listen for the contrast here, Mr. Ambassador.
We have ramped up our military assistance to the Syrian opposition. Tonight I call on Congress again to give us additional authorities and resources to train and equip these fighters.
Look, there's no doubt that it did not work. This is why I've been skeptical from the get-go about the notion that we were going to effectively create this proxy army inside of Syria.
And the other thing he says in that interview is that what are we going to do, send 100,000 more troops in? I haven't heard anyone call for 100,000 troops to go back into Iraq or go into Syria. So where's this coming from?
Well, I think the president gets the Chutzpah Award this week because what he's saying is the incompetence of my administration in bumbling this multi-million-dollar training program for the Syrian opposition proves that I was right in the first place for not wanting to go in. And listen, I speak as someone who didn't want to intervene in Syria either. But right now, it's Obama who's acting out of desperation. It's not Putin, as he has said in other interviews. Again, reports in the past couple of days of the United States airdropping tons of weapons and ammunition to Syrian opposition groups. That's not a sign of strength. That is a sign of weakness. It's a very ineffective, inefficient way to deliver supplies. Parachutes are not exactly precision guided. The weapons could fall into the wrong hands. They could be damaged on impact. They could be distributed improperly. It means that these Syrian opposition units are isolated and cannot be reached by ground convoys.
Smacks of desperation. Smacks of desperation, exactly. Then, right? Is that? I mean,
bad news
that's
for the opposition. Exactly.
Okay. Now, this embassy that was bombed earlier today, it's hard to know who's telling the truth because there's so many competing factions there. But what do you anticipate in terms of engagement in the Syrian conflict in the coming weeks or months? I mean, the president pretty much said the other night, this is a quagmire. And if that is the case, Mr. Ambassador, how does this end up? Is he right that says Russia gets bogged down and they find the difficulties just like we found them in that country, or in that region, I should say?
Right. Well, at this point, Obama's policy is about as clear as mud. I don't think he's going to do much of anything. But Russia's policy, at least its objectives, are pretty clear and pretty limited. They are not, despite what they're saying publicly, trying to destroy ISIS. They're trying to prop up the Assad regime. And what that means in the first instance is largely going after the Syrian opposition forces, not ISIS. That's why Putin's comments to the Gulf Arab leaders are so important. He's basically saying, stay out of the way on this. I think you're going to see more Russian assistance to the Assad forces and more assistance from Iran, especially as we move forward with the implementation of the Vienna nuclear deal and tens of billions of dollars of previously frozen Iranian assets become available. I think Iran pours those into the struggle in support of its longtime puppet, the Assad regime.
Thank you, sir. John Bolton in Washington.
Thank you,
we'll
Bill.
see if you're right again in time. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time today. Here's Martha.